so many people come in, we run stool tests, and and we're seeing like lots of microbiome deficiency, but all that was because they spent 30 years not drinking water and they're living with gas and bloat and irritable bowel syndrome. Welcome to the True Health Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lonnie Bagwell, stress, inflammation, and functional health clinician.
And I'm your co-host, Brigitte Spurgeon, metabolism and nutrition expert.
This podcast is where we bring hope, truth, and inspiration for your holistic health journey.
Because the world needs the best version of you.
Hello and welcome to True Health Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lonnie Bagwell, here with
Brigitte Spurgeon.
The Brigitte Spurgeon. And today we're going to be talking about a topic, another topic that we talk about almost daily in the office or on the phone with patients. And this is one where, where because of the importance of it, we choose to talk about this repeatedly. It's not always just the patient quizzing us about it, right? Like we make sure that this is a part of all of the consults we do. It affects actually when we're doing chiropractic, talking about pain and inflammation. We're talking about GI health and hormones. We're talking about weight loss, metabolics, energy, any of those topics. This comes up repeatedly as a cornerstone of the solution to what the patients present us with. And today, what we're talking about is water. We're talking about hydration or dehydration. And I hope that, I think that I want to make this podcast mandatory for every new patient that starts care in the office or virtually, because it is just so important. And over the years, before I knew better, I would chase, I'd like, we're removing interference and we're helping them, and they wouldn't get better. And then all of a sudden we start saying, wait a minute, are you hydrated? Are you drinking water? And then they admit that they're having 8 cups of coffee a day and like 1 glass of water. And we turn the table around on that. And all of a sudden they have a major breakthrough with their health. Right. And it's a part of even our most advanced protocols. If we're talking cancer, if we're talking, like, just, you have to be hydrated properly. And so that's what today is all about. And we thought that we would kick off this episode with a little bit of fact versus fiction when it comes to water, just kind of break the ice here, kind of tackle some of the most common misconceptions that people, some of the common things that we say, we teach to patients, or common misconceptions that they come to us with. So I'll say fact or fiction. Brigitte, you answer, and we can, one of the two of us can jump into it. We're going to go through it pretty quickly because we want to talk more about some of the advanced understanding concepts clinically when it comes to hydration. But first and foremost, fact or fiction, the color of your urine matters.
Yes, it does. Fact.
Fact. Absolutely. Yep. You got it. We don't get this in depth with it, but I think there's a scale of 8 different colors where you can rank in, like the first 4 indicate hydrated, the second 4 indicate dehydrated, all that stuff. But color absolutely matters. And what are we going for? For our listeners right now, what color are we shooting for? That's a simple one that they can just look in the toilet without having to get the test strips out.
Yeah, so certainly we want clear urine. I think it's great to have these tools to assess our own health and to check on these things. I mean, yes, check your urine, check your poop, check your, we can get into women's health here,
yeah.
check your mucus and things like that. So, but this is an
Right.
easy one. I certainly I've had endurance races where I finished a race and I have had urine that is dark or even bloody and things like that. So you don't want to go that direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Pale yellow to clear. And we're going to have to do a episode in the future called Check Your Mucus. And we'll talk about hormones and all that good stuff, by the way. Thanks for coining that phrase. That's awesome. It's so true, though. We talk about it all the time. But people you're right. They need to take charge of their health and start talking about these things. All right. Fact or fiction. Thirst automatically means that you're dehydrated.
Fiction.
That's going to be a tough one for people, but that's true. That's right. That is fiction. And a lot of people know this, but they don't think about it right away, is that you can feel thirsty, but you really be hungry, right?
Yeah, or the other way around.
You can be, right. Or you can have consumed a ton of sodium, ton of salt, and your body's telling you that it needs to dilute that, but it's not necessarily a dehydration issue, right? Or spicy food was the other example. All right. So that's a good one for people to realize. Like so now what happens? You're drinking, you're feeling like you're thirsty, and you have to check yourself and just say, what did I just eat? Is my body demanding, 8 ounces right now, or can I maintain my sipping, throughout the hour.
The other part of that to remember is sometimes that thirst mechanism gets dulled or gets turned off due to chronic dehydration. And so someone could say, well, I'm never thirsty, but they literally could be living in dehydration, and that's just because it's from chronic dehydration, it's been turned off. And then when you start hydrating properly, you'll notice now all of a sudden you're thirsty. It's just because your body's been brought back into homeostasis, and now it's functioning properly the way it should.
Right. That's good. And then we get into other clinical stuff. If somebody's listening, we get into liver function, gut function, kidney function, lots of stuff tie into that conversation right there too. Good stuff. All right. Fact or fiction? Certain groups of people are more susceptible to dehydration than others.
Fact.
That's fact. Yep, absolutely. Children more prone to dehydration because of vomiting and diarrhea, right? The top 2 causes of dehydration in the world. And so they're definitely susceptible. And then definitely you need to check side effects, or effects as we call it, of the medications that you're taking. Those are 2 population groups that are really easily targeted as high dehydration risk.
If you carry more body fat, you're going to be more susceptible as well, because of your the cellular makeup of fat versus muscle. So it's really interesting because my husband has really low body fat, and it's like he requires less water.
Opposite of what a lot of people would think. My metabolism's up, so I'm more active. And so there's a lot more to the story, and a balancing act that has to happen there. Fact or fiction? When you are dehydrated, drink as much water as you can.
Fiction. It goes a little bit like that, but but yes. We're going to go fiction on that one.
That's right. That is fiction. And it's how we're going to talk about how here in a minute, but how you drink actually can hydrate you faster than the volume, right? So it's not just, hook yourself up to the fire hose. Fact or fiction? Your sleep can affect your hydration.
Fact.
That's right. That's a fact. Less than 6 hours puts you into a dehydrated state. So 6 hours or less, and that person more often wakes up dehydrated, versus someone who gets more than 6 hours often can maintain higher levels of hydration throughout the night. Of course, all of us dehydrate a little bit through the night, but for the breathing, right? Respiration. Fact or fiction? If you're dehydrated, then you want to drink liquids only or consume liquids only to rehydrate.
Fiction.
This is a good quiz.
Yeah, back to the previous question, because sometimes your body needs something else. Yeah. That
and also 80% of our hydration comes from liquids. 20% actually comes from food that we consume, like this, mainly fruits and vegetables, and so because they have a high water content. And you can get that water in kind of like it's like a slow release with the food while you're hydrating, and you can get it, obviously from 2 different places. And then the last one I'll say here is fact or fiction: 8 glasses of water a day.
Fiction.
And that's all I need to say, because everybody's been hearing that for their whole lifetime. Right.
We're calling fiction. Big time.
Everybody's different.
Fiction on that one.
Exactly. We just got done talking about color, and if one person drank 8 glasses of water a day and their urine was still dark, they're not hydrated. So it's really, everybody probably has experienced that to some degree. It depends on how how hydrated you are to begin with. But the average, the study that I just read before this episode said that right now they have it up to 11 glasses of water a day for women and 15 for men. So literally, men almost double the last 50 years of recommended glasses of water a day. Again, the whole glasses of water a day is a bit arbitrary anyway, regardless. They're just trying to find a better average, but make sure you're drinking a lot more than just that 8 glasses of water a day, even male or female. And then we can get into the discussion around, were you active that day? Were you not active? Was it 30 degrees outside or 80 degrees outside, right? And then that's going to cause that number to go up and down as well. So that'll conclude fact or fiction as it relates to water and hydration. But let's talk more clinically about why it's important to stay hydrated, because it's more than just how you feel. Although there's a lot of major things that you can feel negative, right, if you're dehydrated. And I was really pleasantly surprised preparing for this, because we have kind of our approach to health. True health starts with a foundation of neurological function, gut health, metabolic and energy systems working properly, and then we get into nutrition and detox, all those things, right? And I was really pleasantly surprised that it was a lot less minutia to sift through, and really everything that I was reading, multiple articles pulling up, it was saying that the biggest reasons why you stay hydrated were, guess what? Brain function, gut function, metabolic systems. It was really speaking to the core issues with people's health nowadays. So that was encouraging to me, because a lot of times when we talk about hydration with patients, we got to sift through what they've read on the internet or what their friends told them, and it's a lot of these myths and a whole lot of like superficial discussion, and people. So the problem there is that people don't get the importance of it, and so the urgency isn't there to stay hydrated, and then therefore we end up having to talk about it all the time and see a lot of sick people because of it. But for everybody listening, give us a little bit of a primer on why hydration is important as it relates to things that you see on a more consistent basis with patients, metabolically or otherwise.
Yeah, so a couple of things, and I'll even start off, we all want great cognitive performance. We all want good memory, recall, and, a clear mind, and be able to make decisions and things like that. And so, like, our brains are 95% water. In fact, if we look at all of our tissue, that's the most hydrated tissue in our body. So it just makes sense that we need to keep that hydrated. So literally, when you get a certain percentage dehydrated, automatically your cognitive function is going to be the first to go down. So that's going to be really important. Then we're looking at circulation. So that's how that's how our nutrients are getting around our body. That's obviously our blood, like our heart's pumping our blood, and our blood is 83% water. So we have to and that's going to affect things like our blood pressure. And then, I spoke about earlier about, when someone is carrying more body fat, when they have a higher percentage body fat. And so it's interesting because fat cells are 10% hydrated when muscle cells are 80% hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, more than 50% of your body is body fat, then your percentage, the percentage at which your body is hydrated at a cellular level is automatically less. You're already behind the 8 ball just because of your tissue makeup. And so, the reason why for me as a clinician that hydration is so important, because when I practice, it's not just about the number on the scale, and it's not just about helping someone lose weight, because guess what? You can help someone lose weight by abstaining, by dry fasting. But is that help, necessary, the way to help your body heal and things like that? And so we want our patients' bodies to start healing from the inside out. We want to decrease inflammation. We want to support the detoxing pathways. We want to support cellular health. We want to support GI function. We want to overcome constipation. We want to support cognitive function and things like that. So we want to look at the body holistically, and we want the whole organism to function well, and that's just going to be foundational.
Yeah, that's good. I'll extrapolate on a couple of those things, because people like the brain neurological support of proper hydration. It affects memory, mood, cognitive function, and what you had mentioned some of that, but it also affects even emotions. So even emotions that people experience. And by the way, the percentage on that. What percentage dehydrated do I need to be in order for it to affect my emotions or my ability to calculate 2 + 2, or carry myself through the day, through meetings, and to have that proper neuroadaptability to get through my day? And the number is 2%. 2% dehydration starts cognitive decline. Right. And this is why I was talking to another clinician the other day. This is kind of a side note, but totally related to this, is that, why we use hydration so much. I was talking to another clinician, and he said when he does Alzheimer's screening on people, he goes, almost 80% of 45-year-olds or older are at stage 2 Alzheimer's. Because it's a lot of lifestyle stuff like this that actually drives that we're literally existing 45-year-olds or older, and we're literally existing at a stage 2 Alzheimer's level. And that's, of course, the medical model, their scale. It's not some alternative scale for determining Alzheimer's, it's totally crazy that we would allow for ourselves to live in that state, at least partially related to hydration, right? So neurological, if there was only one reason, as always, that you would stay hydrated, it would be to have a healthy nervous system, right? But then you mentioned digestion. Definitely, like so many people come in, we run stool tests, and and we're seeing like lots of microbiome deficiency. But all of that was because they spent 30 years not drinking water, and they're living with gas and bloat and irritable bowel syndrome, right? And then when you don't have proper oxygen being transported to the brain, right, because you're dehydrated, and you actually have your heart that's having to work more, because to actually drive oxygen around. So the combination is your body, your brain and your tissue needs oxygen. And if you're hydrated, you can do that more efficiently. If you're not, it's like putting low octane fuel into your car, right? You're just not, you're not getting a good return on your investment there. Or you can look at it the other way, like you're getting the same, you have to get through your day. So you have the same amount of energy. It's just costing you way more. Like we're complaining about gas prices still right now, at the time of this recording, right? Bottom line is that this is an absolute energy tanker. Like this is one of the top things that you can do. If your goal for the day is to have less energy and to be frustrated about it, then just don't drink water. Right. But if your goal is to have optimal performance, it has to be on a foundation of hydration. Right. And then of course, something that we deal with on a regular basis, actually even with virtual patients, because of all the inflammation stuff that we do, is pain. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned the makeup of the brain. Your joints are 80% water as well. And people don't think about that because it's the whole joint complex itself. And when you get dehydrated and that joint complex dehydrates, then that's what increases lots of aches and pains in all the joints that we feel. So the people come in all the time and they'll say, I just know I have arthritis here. I just know I have arthritis there. And we take x-rays and it's like, actually, there's no arthritis present. The joint's not moving the way that it's supposed to, which is at least in part because of hydration, right? Maybe there's bad biomechanics that we need to correct, but also we need to hydrate that thing. So anybody's listening right now, watching, they can see how like it's a part of our conversation on an ongoing basis, right? And then even when you get into pain and inflammation outside of the joints, this actually was something that happened to me with patients, not that I researched and I can't take responsibility for it. But fibromyalgia, of course, has been constantly on the rise. Whatever everybody's opinion, diagnosis. Bottom line is it's a class of symptoms, and many of the symptoms of fibromyalgia are things that we've already mentioned in this podcast. Right? It's this big complex of things, and we've already talked about 75% of them, and people don't even realize it. Right? And so that explains why when I had a fibromyalgia patient, the first one, and we started teaching lifestyle stuff and nutrition and got her hydrated, the hydration was the first thing that she did. And she reported a 50% reduction in her pain just by being properly hydrated. So I just think about the more importantly than the pain is the insanity of the medical merry-go-round around her life to that point, years of fighting fibromyalgia or whatever that is, right? All these symptoms that she was having. And really hydration, and not once did anybody ever tell her, go get properly hydrated, if you want to reduce some of the pain. So, and of course it applies outside of fibromyalgia, just pain in general, muscle pain in general. You just said the muscle makeup, right? You can't expect to live pain-free and be dehydrated. It just isn't going to happen that way. And then we get into more advanced clinical things. Again, not maybe the purpose of today's episode, but I personally experienced kidney stones, and they are largely in part, if not extremely largely in part, due to having living chronically dehydrated. I had no one encouraging me to drink water while I was doing year-round sports, for whatever 8 years of my life, and then later on I started getting kidney stones, and we know that that's rooted in dehydration. And the solution for kidney stones, the number one solution, is staying hyperhydrated, right? Just keeping fluid flowing constantly in order to combat continually making them. And so, and it's a multi-year recovery process once you've been making them, because it was a multi-year process to get into it. So can't express, we could go on for another hour talking about like what goes wrong when you don't drink water. But those are some of the biggest things that I think that'll hit 80% of the people watching right now that they've experienced in the last 6 months, according to the actual surveys that we hand out. So, so with that said, if we have enough urgency then to stay hydrated, let's teach everybody kind of what to drink and then how to drink it. And I think that'll round out today's episode. So, so what's the best source of water for everyone? Like if you were just talking to the whole population at large, if you were going to pick one kind of water to drink, what would you say?
Yeah, just like a pure, like spring water, or just like a naturally sourced water is going to be the best. If you're just, and that if I'm traveling and I'm maybe even looking at bottled water, which I don't like to drink, but I'm going to go for a spring water or even an alkaline water there. And then I just tell my patients, I encourage them to definitely use some kind of filtration system, and that's a whole nother conversation on levels of water filtration. But you want to get
Mm-hmm.
pure water into your body, because unfortunately in different countries, our water out of the faucet, there's so many things have been added in there, and it's polluted with things like medications and things like that. So we do want to
Mm-hmm.
do our very best to filter our water. And honestly, we actually give our patients we used to give like a glass bottle. Now we give a stainless steel bottle, because so many people actually, they even just buy and keep in their homes, just like, the like 16 ounce or the 12-ounce bottled waters. And honestly, we just have to be mindful that plastic is leaching
Mm-hmm.
in. So you are going to get toxicity from those. I have a story. So I have a history of polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it just one day it dawned on me, like, oh my word, like I'm detoxing my life. But the one thing I hadn't stopped doing because of convenience was bottled water. And I was actually giving a talk on toxicity. And in the talk, I was convicted. And I said, oh my word, I have to stop drinking bottled
Mm-hmm.
water and switching to glass. And taking water with you from your home, filling up your glass bottles or your stainless steel bottles and taking those to work, or taking those for your errands, having water in the car with you so that you can be sipping on water throughout the day. Which actually brings us to the best way to drink water versus trying to get it all in at once. Sip on it
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day. That's going to be optimal for your cellular health.
Absolutely. And one quick note on because I think it's important to talk about the mineral content in water is really one of the things that makes it amazing, right? Like that's actually what makes it so healthy for our body. It's not just the water, but the fact that it has the right minerals so that we can use it properly, right? And we can retain the water. And and generally, if you're dehydrated, you might also have a mineral deficiency with it. So there's some of the bottled waters out there that are better than others when it comes to the mineral content. But when you go into filtration, what I wanted to say was you got to be careful, because a lot of people come in and say, "Oh, I've been drinking reverse osmosis water for the last 10 years," and while that might take the most things out of the water, it also takes out the things that we want in the water. And so if you do heavy filtration on your water, you have to make sure that you're remineralizing it, at least with some kind of drops, but preferably with an actual remineralizer that can actually and it not only does it remineralize it, but it actually changes the shape of the water structure so that it's easier to draw into your body and hydrate with it. So lots more discussion. That's a whole episode by itself, but I think it's important to say that, so at least people don't start drinking gallons of reverse osmosis or distilled water or something, and then all of a sudden they're having other symptoms, because they're depleting their body, or they're flushing minerals and stuff like that. And then you did mention how to drink the water, and you mentioned sipping kind of throughout the day. Yep, I always told people, like, if you're going to have 16 ounces sitting in your glass, bottle there, then you want to try to make it a habit of, like, every 10 to 15 minutes drinking 4 ounces, 4 ounces, 4 ounces right throughout the day is ideal, so your body can process it properly and get it into intracellular, which is where hydration really happens. And then the other thing is, and we both agreed on this, about you really want to minimally drink water during your meals, so you can maintain proper enzymes in your mouth. Digestion actually starts in the mouth, and so you can just, if you're drinking too much water, you can dilute that ability to digest and put more of a burden on your gut, with the food that you're eating. So again, it's so important. Yes, you want to drink clean water, and preferably with a good mineral complex in it. But if you're slamming it, 32 ounces at once and then not drinking for another 8 hours, you're mostly just urinating that out and flushing minerals out of your system. It's kind of having the opposite effect. You're only going to hydrate so much from that. And so it's important to make sure that we're doing it correctly, not just cleanly, but correctly. And what else did we want to talk about when it comes to water and hydration for our listeners?
Yeah, so I'll give you just like a super basic tip here is keeping a glass of
Mm-hmm.
water by your bed when you go to sleep. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you can wake up and you can start sipping immediately. And then another recommendation is to do some kind of warm tonic in the morning where you do intentionally add something. So whether that be some lemon juice and apple cider vinegar
Mm-hmm.
or some pink salt is beautiful because pink salt has 84 ionic trace minerals. Obviously, it's got your naturally sourced sodium and chloride. So what are electrolytes? Electrolytes are those charged
Mm-hmm.
minerals that that are active in your body. And so just taking in, even if it is like an eighth of a spoon of or a quarter of a spoon of pink salt in a big mug of some warm water in the morning, now you're already replenishing those minerals and getting those electrolytes
Mm-hmm.
working. The other thing with the warm water, especially in the morning, what that does is just like wakes up your organs and helps to get things flowing. It actually supports your liver function and your gallbladder function, getting that bowel duct, getting things moving, so it can kind of aid in getting digestion and bowel movements going and things like that. So I'm a big fan of the warm water in the morning. As far as cold water, I'm not an ice water drinker, and I think there can have some metabolic benefit to drinking some ice water. But I would say the only time I do drink ice water is when I'm racing in heat or exercising in heat. Then there is a
Mm-hmm.
benefit because of temperature regulation.
And and when they studied it, like then it is more refreshing, which is the psychology of it too, right? Like, and that's just something to be spoken of because a lot of the water temperature stuff comes down to preference. There are benefits to if everybody wants to know what's the fastest to rehydrate, that's going to be your room temperature water, right? Obviously, it can thermogenically support you warming up and warm your core if you're having warm water. Cold water, refreshing and helps recover a little bit quicker from high exhaustion, like activities and things like that, as far as the psychology of it. But then also, it actually just helps you kind of cognitively is the word I'm looking for. It actually helps you cognitively kind of bounce back a little bit quicker if you're in a hot environment or something like that. So, but the bottom line is, and I kind of said this before, don't let that be a barrier. If you can't get cold, can't get warm, or don't have regular, make sure that you're getting hydrated. That's the key. And I love when you talk about in the morning. I guess that's the last thing I'll say about it is that when you talk about drinking water in the morning, it's not just about avoiding all the negative things that we talked about, but you went through and it really bumps up function of all of the things that you really want. Like you want your brain high functioning and on your side throughout the day. You want your digestive system to not be a hindrance, but to be able to metabolically work well, to extract nutrients that you need for optimal function and energy throughout the day. I actually do have a glass. I'd say about 50% of the time I have a glass on my nightstand. I have a couple supplements that I take last thing at night or first thing in the morning that might sit there as well. It's one of the best habits I think that we can create is the habit around hydration. And no better way to, I mean, and you're really, the best hydration is that early in the morning hydration. And since I've been off caffeine, I've tried it a couple of times, had a little bit here and there, but mainly I've been off caffeine about 99% for over 18 months now. And so I can absolutely speak to hydrating first thing in the morning, how it actually increases your mental acuity and energy. And I gave all the credit to caffeine for that, and I gave the power to caffeine for that for so many years, for that energy and mental focus. But now that I've gotten it completely out of my system and live differently, hydration actually has not the full effect of it, but definitely a significant enough effect where I don't have the cravings anymore. So it took a while to get there, but we're fully there. So anything else you want to say before we check out?
For our listeners, definitely reference our podcast that we did earlier on coffee controversy, because we
Mm-hmm.
talk about this. I think it is important when we're talking about hydration to also understand how coffee or caffeine affects us. And once again, it's not how you think. But I love what one of our coaches, Pamela, she teaches her patients to always drink water. Like, don't let coffee or something else, caffeine, be the first thing you put in your body. Make sure that water is always the first thing that you put in your body. So I think that's great advice.
Awesome. And we'll end there. So thank you very much for tuning in to True Health Solutions podcast. We're excited to have you on the show, and make sure that you click and subscribe, and then also reach out to us if there's any way that we can help you with your health or weight loss. And we look forward to checking back with you on our next episode. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us today on True Health Solutions podcast. Make sure that you click to subscribe. Also, go to our website, www.truehealthcharlotte.com, where you can download any resources related to today's show or any future shows. And lastly, if you search for True Health Center Group on Facebook, you'll be able to join our free health community. We look forward to seeing you there.